I have with me here at the table Harry Littman, and you and I were just discussing as we took that quick break that we have a little bit of precedent for something that did happen like this in the 1960s, with a young Julian Bond elected to the State House in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of precedent. So they refused to seat him basically because, and interrupt me anytime if I watch it, but they refused to seat him because of his views on the Vietnam War. And the Supreme Court 9-zip says in 1965, you can't do that. You can't, he has the same First Amendment rights as any citizen. I can't see how that can be reconciled with what they've done here. Everybody understands it's really about gun control. They're going to say, oh, it's just breaking the rules of the House. It's an insurrection, as they've compared it with. But I just don't think that flies, and any court will look behind it. Have the courts overall, including the Supreme Court, changed so much in terms of the deference to states that they would let it fly? I mean, 9-zip, it seems to me dead on point.
I want to bring in Elie Mystal, who's the justice correspondent at The Nation, who's been watching this all day long, really quite it sort of left me speechless, honestly, to watch how this all went down. How about you?
Yeah, when you see the racism like that just out in the open, it does, take your breath away. I'm a little bit like Dave Chappelle in that sketch. The racism is killing me on the inside, right? Like this is bold. I would say this, Chris. Tennessee has now given the entire country an object lesson in critical race theory better than any AP history course ever could have, right? Everybody sees it now. Everybody knows it now. Everybody gets exactly what's going on. To Harry's point about the Supreme Court, any argument that this was about decorum or the House rules in Tennessee, that the Republicans took that argument off the table for the rest of us when they decided not to expel the white lady, but they did expel the 2 black men, right? So that, I think, opens them up to a legal challenge that's even more serious than how I thought it was going to roll 3 hours ago.
Yeah, and I would even say, and I don't think we have this tape racked, actually, but control room, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was one point, Ellie, at which one of the Republicans said, this isn't even really about the rules. It's about you basically making this sort of spectacle while, the bodies are not yet buried. I mean, basically that being and so you actually had explicit admission on the floor today from Republicans saying this is not about decorum. It's not about the rules. We all know are here. And I got to think that to your point, Harry, about trying to litigate this or trying to say it was about a violation of the rules when you have someone actually sitting on the floor.
And every single time they've ever tried to trigger this, it's been because, sexual assault violations, taking bribes, real sort of stuff. And, we've seen it plenty of times, including in the national legislature, members acting up a bit, making trouble, et cetera. That's part of their First Amendment rights. I think this has to go down.
The racial element here obviously is completely in your face and totally unavoidable in as we watch the pictures play out and you see the makeup of the 2 parties' respective caucuses in terms of what does seem clear here, Ellie. It's not rational what we saw happen today. I mean, I know that's sort of obvious, and in some ways, animus and racism and power, misdeeds are not rational. But they've got a supermajority. You just go about your business. Just ignore it. The level of, you saw it on the faces of these Republicans when they got to speak. The level of rage and panic and. It was so evident this was coming from like a crazily deep place.
There's no accounting for vitriol, Chris. There's no accounting for hate. The reason why these people, these Republicans, cannot take winning for an answer is because they hate us. And like I know that level is for certain white viewers kind of like hard to get your minds around, but like what the racism comes from is hatred of black folks. And that is why, despite winning, despite being on top, despite controlling so many of the levers of power, you consistently have Republicans shooting themselves in the foot to try, they're willing to shoot themselves in the foot if that shot can go through and hit a black person, because that is the level of hate they feel for our people. And we all know it. We all understand it. Black people understand what we're up against all the time. This is just one of those rare situations where white people are getting to see it out in the open, just how desperately they hate us, just how much they do not believe that we should be allowed to be equal citizens in this country. Like, this is what we fight about, and they're just showing it, right? This is what Trump taps into. This is the white male grievance that Trump has successfully tapped into to make himself the leader of the Republican Party. It's hatred. And I know, again, the New York Times, well, this is just racially charged. No, they hate us. And this is what hate looks like.
I want to play, I don't know if we have the Andrew Farmer sound. Representative Andrew Farmer, I believe was his name, speaking to Representative Jones. If we could, if there's any way to find that, that would be great. There's also this sort of democratic decline, which has been one of the big themes here, right? In our coverage of the country, right? We've got this situation in which, again, this is a state that Donald Trump won by something like 22 points. This is a fairly safe Republican state in many ways. They win statewide office. They went the extra step, Harry, to give themselves the extra power of 75 seats or whatever it is. So they have this unbelievable power on their hands. And even with that, you see them expelling rightfully elected members of the state.
Yeah, I mean, I at least link it to the National Republican Party. I don't want to be too facile here, but it does seem to me that the numbers they have in different outposts are used not for ideas, but there's just nothing greater than just sticking it to their enemy. That's the reason to have government power, and, it's that viciousness.
We're going to take a quick break, try to see if we can get a better feed out of Tennessee. Ellie Mistel, Harry Littman, stay with me. We'll be right back.